Hello and welcome back everyone. In this video we are going to study about the respiratory system. In our last video we studied about respiration, and there is a big difference between respiratory system and respiration. Don't be confused with that, okay? Respiratory system, they helps to bring about breathing, that is they help in taking enough oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide, whereas the respiration is a process in which the oxygen is utilized to break down the glucose. Okay, there is a very big difference. Don't be confused with name. Respiratory system is solely related to breathing and not with respiration. Okay, though their name seems similar, like they are confusing, I know that. First of all, before starting the topic, let us see what is respiratory system. It is organ system that helps in breathing. Okay, respiratory system are the system of organ, okay, that helps to bring about breathing. Got it? Let's go to page. Okay, you just go to page 103 of your NCERT. okay, it has been clearly mentioned about the breathing of feces and about the breathing of plants. Alright, so I would like to discuss the two questions out here. Why do feces breathe faster? Second is, do plant breathe in oxygen? So what do you think? Why do feces breathe faster? That is because, see, we have a nostril. We can take oxygen directly from the atmosphere, isn't it? But the feces, they do not have nostril like us. They cannot take the oxygen directly from the atmosphere. Instead of that, they have to take in the oxygen dissolved in water. Alright, so what they does, they tend to take more and more water so as to take in oxygen, क्योंकि जितना पानी वो अंदर लेंगे अपने गिल्स के तरफ, उतना ही ऑक्सीजन वो ले पाएंगे, क्योंकि वो डायरेक्टली ऑक्सीजन तो नहीं ले सकते, तो उन्हें क्या करना पड़ेगा, उन्हें पानी लेना पड़ेगा. इसीलिए द रेट ऑफ breathing in the feces are much faster, because they cannot take the oxygen directly, rather they have to take in the oxygen that is dissolved in water. Got the answer? Now second one, do plant breathe in oxygen? See, plant, they also produce glucose by the process of photosynthesis, and we also produce glucose after digestion, isn't it? That is breaking down of food. And see, plant is also producing glucose, we are also having glucose, isn't it? And to break down the glucose, what we need? We need oxygen, isn't it? Oxygen can only break down the glucose and produce a large amount of ATP in us and plants. That means plant also, they need oxygen, and the answer would be yes, the plant also breathe in oxygen to break down the glucose and to produce energy in the form of ATP. By photosynthesis they make glucose, but they do not break glucose by photosynthesis. They break glucose by respiration, and for respiration they need to perform a breathing process. Okay, why do we perform process of breathing? Because we respire, that is we break down the glucose in the presence of oxygen. And if we don't breathe, do we have oxygen in our body? Would we be having oxygen in our body? No. Alright, in order to perform respiration, we perform breathing. That is why respiration and breathing are connected, because of which respiratory system is given to the system which is helping in breathing, and respiration is an overall another process. Okay, now you see the parts of respiratory system. First is the nasal passage, second is the mouth cavity, and third is pharynx, and there is larynx, and there is a trachea. Okay, and trachea has been divided into two parts, that is bronchi. Okay, you see this is trachea, and trachea has been divided into two parts, that is bronchi, and again bronchi has been divided into branches. Okay, those are known as bronchioles, and at the bottom of the bronchioles there are a sac or balloon like structure known as alveoli. Okay, you just see the diagram out there, and you can see these diagram as well. Alright, one more time. First is the nasal passage, Second is the mouth cavity, then comes the pharynx, then comes the trachea, then the bronchi, and then the bronchioles, and then the alveoli. Okay, everything is like one after another, and you have to remember this as well, because you can be asked the pattern, or like of the pattern of the arrangement. Like you may be given trachea, and then you may be given bronchioles, and then you might be given bronchi, and then alveoli. You have to match it in a correct sequence. Okay, so if we know this, then only we can match it with a correct sequence. Okay, and another thing is, this is known as alveoli. All right, the respiratory. Okay, and the main thing I just forgot to mention, that is the lungs. Okay, and you see the lungs. Okay, the lungs, you can see there is a flexible muscle, and these muscles are known as diaphragm. Okay, and we will see the changes happening in these muscles, and we will see the changes happening in the lungs. Okay, during the process of breathing. The main agenda of this topic is to understand the breathing, what changes happens when we breathe in and breathe out. All right, and here we will be studying in detail like what happens when we are breathing in and what happens when we are breathing out. So you try to figure it out by yourself. When we are breathing in, what we do, the changes, what happens, like I'm lifting my ribs, isn't it? And the diaphragm will be flattened, so that there will be enough place or the enough space for lungs to टेक इन एयर. ठीक है, लंग्स क्या होते हैं, फुल जाते हैं, और जो डायफ्राग्राम होते हैं वो क्या होते हैं, नीचे चले जाते हैं और वो फ्लैट हो जाते हैं. यू सी दिस पिक्चर एंड यू सी दिस पिक्चर. इन दिस पिक्चर व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, द लंग्स इज गेटिंग एक्सपैंडेड and the diaphragm is getting flattened. All right, and as the lungs is expanded, now what happens, there is enough space in the alveoli sac to take in the oxygen. As we breathe in oxygen, then the oxygen would come and settle in the alveoli sac, and out here what happens, when we are breathing out carbon dioxide, there is no air present in the alveoli sac, because of which the diaphragm has been dome shape. Okay, so what are the major changes happening here? The lungs get expanded, rib cage is lifted, and then the diaphragm get flattened. When we are taking in oxygen or when we are inhaling in air, what happens, diaphragm get flattened, lungs get expanded, and the rib cage get lifted. Okay, this is when we are giving out air, then what happens, the lungs would be smaller in size, and the diaphragm will be turning into dome shape. Cage will not be lifted, or it will be in its original or relaxed position. So we understood the major changes happening in the respiratory system when we are giving out air and when we are taking in air. Now let us understand how is this actually happening. Okay, let us understand from the heart itself. I'm making the picture of heart out here. Okay, so we'll be studying this part mainly when we will be studying about circulatory system, but here for your information I'm just giving you a gist of information, is that the alveoli sac, which is present at the tip of bronchioles, okay, is a balloon shaped structure. Okay, you see it is a balloon shaped structure like this. At the top of the alveoli there are a network of capillaries like this. This is alveoli. Okay, it is containing oxygen. At the top of this there are network of blood vessels in the form of capillaries. Okay, and we know that capillaries are thin walled or single cellular blood vessels from where the diffusion of dissolved material, may it be oxygen, carbon dioxide, any other gases, can be easily possible, isn't it? That is why here also the diffusion of carbon dioxide and oxygen, or exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen, can happen easily. Now after we have taken in the air or oxygen, the alveoli will be containing lots of oxygen. Alright, there will be the storage of oxygen in the alveoli sac. Now the capillaries has gone and formed a network in the alveoli sac. Now what will be happening? The oxygen present in the alveoli sac will be going to the blood vessels, will be transferred to the blood vessels, and the carbon dioxide present in the blood vessels will be transferred to the alveoli sac. That means here the exchange of gases happens. Firstly, what happens? The oxygen present out here will be transferred to the blood vessels, okay, and then secondly, what happens? The carbon dioxide present here will be transferred to the alveoli sac. Okay, you see the crisscross is happening. That means the oxygen from here is transferring to the blood vessels, and the carbon dioxide from blood vessel is transferring to the alveoli. And you see, firstly oxygen will be coming out from the alveoli sac. Now the alveoli sac will be vacant or empty, and after that the carbon dioxide will be moving to the alveoli sac. First the oxygen will be going outside, and then after that the carbon dioxide will be going in. That means the exchange is happening. Oxygen is coming out and the carbon dioxide is getting in. Alright, the oxygen comes out. The balloon shape structure or the bag will be empty now. So what happens? The carbon dioxide from the blood vessels will be moving into the alveoli now. Alright, and now you see these blood vessels is carrying oxygen, and the blood vessels which was taking the blood to the lungs was carrying carbon dioxide. It has given carbon dioxide and taken in oxygen, and now it is going back to the heart. Okay, this is what happens in the lungs. That is, the exchange of gases happens in the lungs. Oxygen from alveoli will be going to the vessel, and the carbon dioxide from the vessels will be going to the alveoli. Okay, you can see the process of exchange happening out here. Now, last but not the least, we have to study about hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a pigment, okay, which is present there in a blood, which helps to carry in oxygen. The hemoglobin part is very favorite part of CBSE, because every time they give one or another question which is related to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment which is found there in blood, because of which our blood are red in color. And what is the function of hemoglobin? They helps to bind in oxygen, and they helps the oxygen to be circulated to all part of the body. See, we in our blood contain hemoglobin, because of which only what happens, that oxygen from the alveoli can be absorbed. Okay, they have a capacity to absorb the oxygen or bind the oxygen. That means they have affinity with oxygen, like chumbak. Have you ever seen a chumbak? Isn't it magnet? They have a affinity with iron. So when I am bringing iron nail, what happened? That will come and bind with the iron. In the same way, hemoglobin also have affinity with oxygen. Whenever they will find oxygen, they will readily go and bind, and they will be taking it along with the blood, because of which the oxygen can be readily dissolved in blood and taken into all part of the body. But the scenario is different in case of carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide do not need any kind of respiratory pigment, as they are dissolvable in water itself. They are soluble in water, and they can bind with water and move freely in blood, because our blood contain water. So the carbon dioxide can move freely with blood. Or if you have a less hemoglobin in blood, then what happens? We are able to take only less amount of oxygen to the blood, and hence the amount of oxygen which will move on or circulate in our body will be very less. If the oxygen is less, then what happens? The rate of respiration is less. That means the glucose will take more time to be broken down and to release energy, isn't it? The normal count of hemoglobin in human is 14, and if it is less than 10, then it is problematic. You have to take much food which is red in color, like carrot, pomegranate. Coming to the gist of the topic, we studied about 4 things. That is, we studied about respiratory system in detail, and then we studied about the changes happening in the respiratory system when we are breathing. We studied about the function of alveoli, we studied about the mechanism of exchange of gases, and we also studied about the function of hemoglobin and how hemoglobin helps on to bind with oxygen and why it is so important, isn't it? We studied the 5 points. You note it down and you go through this video once and again so that you understand it clearly. Alright, you may not get it at once, but I assure you, if you see this video over and again, you will be getting more than what you got from the first time. Okay, so stay tuned, stay safe, keep learning and keep watching the videos as well. Thank you so much.